What's up, YouTube? This is going to be like a little rant or talk about how the Natural Aquarium could have flaws, or if it has flaws, and if it's better to keep it, I guess, improving or evolving into the Natural Aquarium. Because there's things we cannot replicate from nature. And one of them is evaporation. Can't replicate that. You got to add water, no matter what it has. So you're still doing like a mini water change because nature evaporated water, so you're left with everything else that's not H2O. So basically, the more nitrates you have, the less water there is in there, the nitrates is going to go up. KH, it could go up, down, depending what you have. It gets really bad. But I don't know if you can tell, my lights are going out. So now I'm gonna have to upgrade. But for the past month, I've ran into fish story, father fish, and anoxic infiltration or something like that. Dr. Novak. And I've been watching their videos like non-stop, all there, just soaking in everything to see how I can make this tank into that method. But I feel there's flaws the more I look into it and read up on things. And Fish Story has a lot of good sources and everything. He's constantly improving that hobby. So is Father Fish. But some people can't do it with some fish because these catfish, when they swim around or when they eat, they will get rid of the sand into certain places because of how powerful they swim. And I have to have them in a tank like this and upgrade as they get to a certain size, because if I don't, they might not get the food and they'll start rotting. So I gotta do these things differently, but with some help with everybody that is knowledgeable, because I've watched Aquarium Co-op. Candy herself is the longest one I've been watching since 2011. And all of them have really good points, but sometimes you can't get it perfect because you still have to do water changes like once a month or once every 6 months, once a year. There is maintenance always. You're constantly maintaining everything. When I do my water changes, before I do, I'm always looking at KH and pH, because plants will soak up all the nutrients and KH will drop. And my Oscar, for the past few months, been dealing with hole in the head. When I tested the water, it was low on KH, and nitrates were at 20 to 40 parts per million. Not bad. But with plants, these guys will eat them. As they get older, they become more vegetarians. So that's another flaw. So I'm trying out Sagittarius, since it's so fast growing. It's been in here for a week and already have 4 new ones. That tells me that there's a whole lot of nutrients in here and also not enough light. So Father Fish is really good, but one thing that I've noticed that he said that I'm kind of wondering, because he's probably one of the most knowledgeable people, being 75 years in the hobby. And I've always wanted to test things and try new things out. And one of the things are, this tank runs on a, right now it's 10-year-old marine landline. It's not as bright as it used to be, but the moss grows, all this grows, but there are problems with the plants. I'm guessing I do dose with Aquarium Co-op more than fertilizer, but I don't run CO2. It's all about enjoying the hobby, not working on it. It's not a business, it's an enjoyment. I've bred so many fish, and really just making it nice and comfortable for them works the best. Right now I'm trying to get these fish to get along well, and all of them do pretty for the most part. But as you can see, here's my hand, how deep that substrate is right there. I could put rocks in there, like Father Fish says, and he is right, it would work. But I'm not trying to put soil under the sand, but I can still get all the filtration I can with how deep this is. So right now I'm attempting to put all the plants in the where they designed their home in the deep sections. That way they can get all the filtration. So far this tank I can almost go 2 full weeks without a water change. I do need to add some fast growing plants into it, but because of the type of fish, I gotta be careful about choosing. So I do test these things, which plant work, and I do leave decaying leaves. It is good for the fish tank. But as you can tell, I'm having a lot of algae growing, and these don't pearl. I do open this window, but I don't open it for too long. I just like that morning sun or the late afternoon sun, but for a few hours. And then I do like the look of this algae on this wood. I don't mind it. Makes it look more natural. But the big problem I have is you can't just ignore feeding the fish sometimes when they're this big. You gotta have nutrients for them that they will eat. Yes, you can leave them without food for a while, but at the point that these are aggressive, they will kill each other eventually. But it works for these small fish that I have up here. So we gotta take in consideration what type of fish and everything we have. So this tank has gone through some trouble since I added my German blue ram. And that's a female. I had a couple of males. Instead of pairing, she killed them. But she does good right now. I got some Corridoras. This tank, I used to be able to go a month without a water change until I added her. So it was balanced. Now it's kind of cuckoo. But in the past 2 years, my water's been good until 6 months ago. And now my Oscar is dealing with this, and I won't use medication because it's the water quality. My tap water has 1 part per million ammonia coming out of it. When the city tests it, what they do is actually let your water run for 15 minutes before you test it. Well, we all know the aquarium hobby works like nature pretty much. You gotta do it as close as possible as nature. So that's clean water coming out. But when people drink water out of their faucet, they don't even let it run. Well, in the aquarium hobby, as you can tell, I got some bubbles up here, but it's called the water quality coming out of my tap. I can't do RODI. I don't make enough for that. I can barely afford this now. COVID kind of ruined everything for everybody. But here's the breeding pair, and they dug out everything. I had a pot in there. I put it on top of the sand. I didn't have rocks, which would have helped. But I don't use technology. I just use nature. I let this run for a little bit. All that comes out of another tank, as I got extra right here and over there. Every tank has driftwood. My tap water has a high pH, so all this lowers my pH. But as long as I can keep my KH above 40, I'm fine. And water changes raises it, so I try to keep a 25% water change since I've started seeing the high ammonias. Well, the flaw is you gotta be careful with parasites, especially when bringing things from outside nature. There are parasites in nature. National Geographic has caught fish in the wild with tongue parasites. Parasites can be eggs like these snails. You can get stuff from the wild and get snails that you never had. So to make it possible without any parasites to put it in a tank, I think I would have to grab the leaves and put it into this tank. This is a quarantine tank for my Nicaragua or Honduran red point convid. Got beat up by a breeding pair that's paired up in my 40 gallon that always breeds. Sometimes I have to divide them to make sure that they rest and catch up. But this one only runs off of house light, from the, not the house light, but the outside light. It used to have the light that's on that breeding tank, and it had a lot of, I guess, green water came way after hair algae. I like the hair algae when it was controlled. But that tells me that lighting, like Dr. Novak said in his recent video that I watched, you need a lot of light. So I had a lot of light, 10 hours of the light on here and the light from the window. That window stayed, like at 7, I'll open up the window in the morning. All day, it doesn't close until the sun goes out. But I started cutting down the light to just when I'm gonna deal with the fish tank for like 2 or 4 hours, in that range. And that cut down a little bit. But that light went from here to here. It's not made for a tank this small. This is a 3 gallon. I use it as a quarantine tank because it has the best water quality out of all my tanks. I don't do water changes on this tank. I just top it off. And that's all I have. Not much sand. As you can see, they dig it out, make it their home, and now it's cloudy. But it gives me an opportunity to add some more sand, like sea chem fluoride, since I can dose the tank with liquid fertilizer and it will absorb it. It also helps plants grow, but then you can get algae on the sand where there's no plants. So it's a balance. So this tank is perfect. It's cloudy right now, but it's perfect. As long as I can get this tank to stay like it is and stable, I can put any fish in here in a week, they heal. No matter what. It's just so stable. As you can tell, I got the aquarium co-op filter. I like it, but I hate it for fry. These filters that have a, let's say it's like 5 ppm, it will do better than this. Because you can also get all those bacteria like anoxic and anaerobic. It can build up on it. Once it starts clogging certain parts, we'll get those bacteria. Sponge filters are the best, but these, they're terrible. Perfect for this type of tank, but not if I want to have like my Tetra tank with the Corridoras. It won't work. So the one thing is, well, I'll show my other tank, and I am running on these two. I have the Fluval 3.0 planted. It's really bright, so I don't run it on real bright, but now that I saw Dr. Novak's videos, I got to test to see at what limit I can get them to be pearling, running for 12 hours, and then turn it off without it being too much light to where they'll start growing algae because they can only pearl for so much. I guess it's according to nutrients. So everything connects together. So in this tank, it has all these fish in here. I know I'm gonna get some feedback from having the type of fish I have with my jaguar. They do get along. I know they're found in the same waters, or is it dove eyes? Either or. But they're all connected together. Here's my small one. I think that's a male because he's the one that bred, those two bred together. But now looking at him, yeah, that's probably the female. But anyways, get out of the way. I got a fire mouse cichlid, only one, but these fish just do great in here. That's the K for my jaguar. But I got Sagittaria, I only had one right there. I put one over here, which they plucked out and destroyed because they're digging still. I didn't plant them after they're done. But it's growing really well where it's deeper. So I'm hoping to get some from the 250 gallon that are growing and put it in this section, get this all covered with Sagittaria. And I got some of these mini swords I should have probably put them closer somewhere where they get more light, but this is pretty good. It'll get better. Still a growing project, trying to get all the best things from every YouTuber and put them into one to see if I can make it better than what it should be or improve the hobby. But we always got to do water changes, but the natural aquarium is still the best method. You enjoy it more. I need to add more plants. As you can tell, Amazon sword got plucked out because I'm always covering. I tried putting that corner. The jaguar likes this cave, easy access. I can't put over here because when the convicts try to breed, that's like a barrier to where they can't see the jaguar. So they try to make it to where they can see everybody. But they plucked out one of my plants that is for high tech, so which is that one. So I'm probably just gonna let it live its course in here and never get it again. I don't want CO2. It's not natural enough. It's too much money being spent for something that you gotta really enjoy, when you can do the natural way and naturally make it easier. But got my little dovi in here. I gotta add another driftwood, probably right here, or I'm thinking of putting a rock right there to hold this mountain. That way it looks good, and if there's somebody that's gonna breed, they'll feel more comfortable on a rock. But I hope nobody breeds in this tank anymore. Not until I get my bigger tank that I'm trying to get. But I can't put plants here because that's where they want to swim. They like the lower spots. But I can put a plant here because it's so deep that there'll be all the bacteria down here, and you'll have bacteria up here. So the flaw that I think is the parasites, not feeding your fish. Works for small fish. The bigger fish, it doesn't really. Like my Oscar, he won't eat very well. He'll eat a lot one day, then he won't eat for a couple days. And then, because of the ammonia level, it kind of irritated me that he's starting to get that belly. But since I've been trying to hand feed him, he's been getting better. But his hole in the head, I need to add a lot more plants. So I'm thinking I'm gonna have to get about 15 more. But then again, as fast as these are growing, I can just have as many as I can in no time, because I have some jungle val coming, and eventually I'm gonna have more light up here, but I use the window for now. But one thing that people don't notice is you don't need much to not have to do water changes. It's just about a balance. You can have a lot of fish, but you gotta have more plants. You don't need a lot of sand or substrate. You don't have to have it real deep, but you gotta have it over around 3 inches minimum. And that's how it works. My plants don't look the best. I'm still working on it. I'm trying to learn from everybody. But some people just think they know it all and they don't have to learn from anybody else. And all these people I'm watching, like Fish Story, Father Fish, Dr. Novak, King of DIY, Aquarium Co-op, like all of them, they're on the right track. But I just try to take the best of everything that they do, and it just seems like it's gonna work better. But this tank is the only one that probably will be the most challenged, just because of the fish. And once I get the bigger tank, everybody in here will go into there, and then these guys will go into that tank. And by that point, it should be aged, hopefully. Aged enough to work. This has been set up for, I think I got it in 2012 or 13. No, 14. I got this around 2014. So it's been set up a while. It's been same sand. The only thing I added was that sponge filter because I needed more bubbles, because in nature, there's a lot of water flowing in the rivers. water in the rivers or even a creek, there's still water flow. You just can't cut down the water flow. You need all that to flow around, that way plants can get nutrients. So whenever people have a natural aquarium, they don't have water flow. They're just making a lot of stagnant spots. Some plants will do great with it. Some plants won't. But it just has to be, there has to be a better way to make it work without even having to do water changes at all, and just topping off. Topping off is the only thing that you should do. Because nothing lasts forever. Everything will run out. You don't have a river system that flows new nutrients into the area all the time. So water changes has to be done when your KH goes down, because plants need a certain KH. KH tells you a lot about the tank, the stability, nutrients that are in it. So the less water changes you do, the lower your KH will get. And I noticed that all plants can do good all the way up to 8.0 pH. It's all about the light and the nutrients. So all these guys that I mentioned, they're all right, but I'm questioning some of the flaws, because I won't bring things from nature out here in here. But yet you can probably get them to grow by letting your tank get pretty bad, and that way it can balance itself out without having to go to nature. Just like you can get snails out of nowhere. I got snails out in this tank without ever adding plants or wood. I killed them with an assassin snail, but Oscars like snails. So now I have a whole lot of snails growing. And I don't know if I can see it, but usually on this piece of wood there's a lot of snail eggs. So I got an assassin snail in this tank. Slow work at the snails, but that's food for my other fish. And eventually he's going to go into this tank once he eradicates 99% of them. And it's a constant routine of switching the snail out to every tank until I decide if I want one for every tank. But that's pretty much my rant about how I see flaws, but yet it's constantly improving in a way. And I'm trying to, like, if all YouTubers could get together and quit having beefs with each other and talk about everything and do it, like, actually communicate, maybe the hobby would be a lot better. Like, we can make things work. Like, I'm pretty sure I can put a plant here and he won't touch it. And then this side, it's going to be like a mountainside. And that should be enough to make it to where I can be a month without a water change. That's good enough for me. And this tank, rotting leaves are your friends. But right now, I need light. Dr. Novak, sorry about that, is very knowledgeable. He is a doctor. But the lighting is the big factor in making plants grow good. That's one thing I've been noticing. I wish I had some of my older tanks and video. I just get too involved to where I forget to videotape or anything. It's a lot of work whenever you're trying to figure out things in another full-time job. But this tank is probably my favorite, and this one's my other favorite. But on substrate, I think substrate's a big thing, but for the bacteria you need, I think it doesn't matter, as long as it's something more natural than just like artificial or anything like that. Because this one I got, well, I kind of like how they have it set up, but the first layer was this pool filter sand that y'all have, which came out of my 250 gallon. It was in there. I got this tank during COVID, before we got locked out. But this has been aged for probably 6 years, 5 or 6 years from then. And I put it in here, and then I recently just got, well, not too recently, about when I bought this tank, like 6 months ago or 3 months ago, can't remember. But this sand on the first layer on top of the pool filter sand was Active Flora black sand, and then I got some Sea Chem fluorite black sand, and I put it on top of that, pretty much capping off the original one. Probably killed all the bacteria, but I already have beneficial bacteria galore in here with all the stuff. So that basically is going to jumpstart the whole bacteria with where there's no oxygen. So this tank does good on growing plants, except when they pluck them. Like, this plant was real old. I thought it was dying until I put the other soil in. And then it started coming back. Now it's getting algae because my light's not bright enough. And my light's only at 20% right now. I can't raise it up right now because the tank will get too hot because the AC went out. Been 3 days without AC in Texas. So it's kind of tough, but once the AC gets fixed, I don't know if I have to do something about it or it's gonna be fixed eventually, because waiting on parts and thinking of jerry rigging something to make it work, but we'll see. But once I get the AC working, I'm gonna crank up these two lights behind me and probably just put these two lights next to each other in the middle, and they'll shine enough light on the plants. But that'll be a little test I'll do a little bit later once I get the plants and a lot more sand for this tank. But I'm thinking of how to do it, because just the sheer power of these fish, they just spread the sand out. And if you have natural dirted soil, the sand will get blown away, and then all you have all those nutrients and ammonia and all that coming into the tank. So now you got another problem, more water changes, or just fix it. So that's another problem. But I'm trying to soak up all their knowledge and everything as much as I can. I'm reading so much, and there's things I'm limited on. Everybody's limited on it. We all make mistakes, but learning from those mistakes is what makes us wiser, smarter, and more durable in doing things. But my original videos, I had too many fish in here. But the way I got them is I felt bad for where they were, and I put them in a better tank until I can get them a new home. So these are the only fish I want to keep. These are my favorite. That's my eclipse catfish, and there's a smaller one somewhere else. But this guy's about 15, 16 inches. And I got this, let me see. Oh, there he is. The smaller one, I'm going to say it's about almost a foot, or it is a foot. But these guys do well. And I know how far I can go with water changes. But it's kind of hard when your water goes bad. But this tank, when I had my arowanas, I could go 2 weeks without water changes. When I sold them, my Oscar didn't feel comfortable. He liked the arowanas. He grew up with them. And now our tap water is bad. So this tank's a work in progress. To fix that, I'm using plants, and it works the best. All my filters, I got 2 canister filters. This is a Philstar XP4. Had it since I bought this tank. Oh no, before that with my 150. Ooh, it's probably like 10 years old now. Works great. All it has is sponge filters. That's all it has. I use it for flow and just beneficial bacteria to be able to go longer without water changes. And on this side I have a XP3, which seems like it flows more than the XP4 because it has one more extra tray, 4 trays versus 3 trays. So all that put together is we don't need to go too extreme. We just gotta get the right stuff for just to eliminate the bad toxins and all the bad stuff. The more fish you have, the more, I guess, filtration you need, which plants are filtration. And I think driftwoods, they add a lot of beneficial things. I like the tannins, but I try to keep them out of my tank too because it lowers pH. I probably got something mixed up there, but nobody's perfect. But I like King of DIY. He does some cool things. All his fish are awesome. But Fish Stories, If you want to know where to find information, he talks about it all the time. Soaking things up from them is amazing. But we also got to know what would work for our tank and not to put what works for others in our own setups. We got to find out what it is. Like this tank, it goes haywire with this German blue ram right here. But it's getting there. I need to get some more cardinals. Wild caughts don't do good in switching tanks and stuff. They're so sensitive compared to tank rays. So I'm just gonna have to deal with it. And this tank is probably at, I can't see it, almost pretty much 80 degrees. So it's doing good. It's the only one I don't need to worry about opening the lid on. I built these lids myself, and it makes it easy to control water without getting splashed too, because it kind of looks like an acrylic style where they have the lip. And this one I gotta make the hole bigger on, but I thought about making it big enough for plants like I got here. So if anything, just talking to every fish person, I really like talking to the older people because they have more knowledge, way more. I know an old fish store gentleman that I known him since I was a kid. They retired and we still talk about fish, and he gives me a lot of knowledge. But all these new styles that I wish we had years ago, like Father Fish, I'm glad YouTube's around for that, because this wouldn't be possible without all the knowledge we get from people, because most people would quit after losing fish like I did when I was a little kid. I quit keeping fish for 15 years until 2010, and I have gone through a lot of fish. Some died because I'm learning in the past, and still currently we're always learning. And I built that lid too. I like those. Plants grow better under those acrylic lids that I built than these glass lids, and this one gets a lot of stuff underneath it, so I might have to make two for this one, help the light more. And probably next week or Monday or Tuesday I'll have AC again, and then I'll crank them up to 100%, see if I get pearling. If I get algae, then we'll see. I'll just start opening up the window with 100% and see if I can get pearling. If I do, I need more light. But we'll see, because I got a lot of fish, and the reason for why I have this many fish, natural CO2. That's the only reason. Well, also, I wish I had 5 more big tanks, that way I can keep all the fish I like. But these are my keepers also. I don't know about that Texas. I'm kind of contemplating. But maybe when I put my breeding male in here and I put my female in the bottom tank, maybe I can do something, get rid of him. But all these tanks, work in progress. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do about getting another tank for her. None of my tanks, I will not go back to a 10 gallon. This is another important thing. The more water, the longer your tank can sustain, I guess, waste and everything. It'll stay cleaner longer because you have more volume. This tank, it's at its max. These guys are about 20 inches. I'm going to say he's 19, this one's 20. This is my oldest, 13 years old. They grow slow, but they're about to be super happy once I get their 750 plus gallon tank. And then I'm going to set it up. Hope someday I can meet Father Fish and Fish Story, and a lot of those two guys mainly, to help me set it up. See how we can make it work with these guys. Even we can make it work in this tank. Because that's the biggest thing. Like, if we can make it work for every type of fish keeper, it's golden. The copy has exploded to the best level. It's just too hard to just hear people arguing about this is better, my way is better, and really all you're doing is not helping, creating division. Divide and conquer, that's how you ruin something. So let's just try to make it work. I'm not saying anything bad about the Natural Aquarium. I think it's the best way, but it's constantly improving. The only way it can get better is if we all work together. So let's make something happen. And a quick view of all the tanks. I know some of them don't look great, but the water quality is what matters. There's still beneficial bacteria and everything. I got 2 extra micro filters. I don't like them, but I just use them to jumpstart some tanks. When I add everything, the more beneficial bacteria, the better. And this guy's gonna go into the 75 gallon soon, and she's gonna go into the 40. And then she was raised with those convicts, so she won't bother them. The only one I would be worried about if I add him, because it's the smallest, is my wolf cichlid. He's very obedient, looks nice. Well, he looks better when he's out in the light, but that's an awesome fish. I do like it. He's the nicest out of the group. This guy hides there. He sometimes will chase him around when there's food. Well, it's always when there's food. He doesn't want him to eat. Because I try not to feed him too much, like Father Fish says, and everybody that has these Natural Aquarium, but that's my biggest flaw that I'm trying to figure out how we can improve it. Because if we can get natural animals to get in here, maybe get a bridge, have another tank to where the bridge keeps them out of it, the other tank builds food for them, and then when they unknowingly swim into the wrong tank, there's food. That's the only way I can think of it. But I've told them that I'm going to put the divider back in here that I had when my fish, the first 2 batches bred in this tank. But instead, he made this pile bigger because he doesn't want it divided. But I told him that this is his side, and now he stays here. She stays over there. But if I give her attention, he doesn't like me giving that fish attention. Like right now, I'm giving this fish all the attention. All the attention. Look, he's just staring right there. Like, what are you doing? Like, man, I'm being nice to everybody. Most of my fish, if they're really mean, like my Giardini, eventually I'll get rid of them. All I can handle is nice fish. We gotta live in peace. He knows it. He's getting used to it. I had to stick my hand in there one time, and he tried to man up to my hand. I just made my hand look like a mouth, and he submitted. I'm the alpha in this tank. That's pretty much what I did. But all these fish tanks are great. Once I get this one settled down, I'm on to the next step. As long as we get good fish keepers like Fish Story, Father Fish, King of DIY, Aquarium Co-op. Oh, forgot about one person, Dustin's Fish Tanks. He does say you need two 12-inch plants per Oscar. I will agree with that. But I want to find out how many I need for these. Because catfish, their poop is worse than the Oscars. Look at that. Oscars don't look that bad. And that will stick to your dirt and sand and look bad. Which is why I got some samurai soil in here to cover it up, and it benefits plants. But I would like some feedback, how to improve this. All those guys are just very helpful with the knowledge. I hope people start put their beef away and just start working together and make the hobby better. That stuff rubs off on us. And if that type of negativity is going to happen on YouTube to where other people are going to listen to that and create more beef with others, we need to stop that. Let's make the hobby better for everybody and get together. All right. God bless, guys. Peace.